Welcome to the Art of Growth and our Enneagram panel season on the 9 love languages. This episode is the Enneagram Type 3 panel. If you are enjoying this series and are inspired to pursue more and deeper connections in your life, we've got something awesome coming up. This September starts our next group coaching series on the art of connection. In this 9-week journey, we will guide you collectively to acquire awareness and skills that will enhance connections in your life. Take this opportunity to invest in you, your relationships, and in the community you are a part of. It kicks off the beginning of September, so be sure to go to theartofgrowth.org/group coaching to sign up today before it fills up. And now, today's episode.
All right. Well, welcome to the Type 3 Love Languages panel. I am super excited to be here with this wonderful group. We began to talk about this, Jim and I did, back in January. And we're thinking about the problem of loneliness that is in our world currently and how that seems to be increasing, not decreasing. And regardless of how many people are around us, sometimes we still feel lonely, even in crowds, even with plenty of people, in even families. Sometimes people will say, even in their family, they experience some measure of loneliness. And then other stories of like having these moments of deep connection with somebody and feeling so enriched by that. And then wondering, why can't we keep that? Why can't that be an ongoing experience? And so all of that was part of the formation of, well, then, this idea of we need to talk to the different types and ask them about this issue of connection. But the way we wanted to approach that was through what we suspect being the cure to a lot of this sense of loneliness is this issue of being able to receive love. To have an exchange with another person where we are receptive, we're receiving things that are coming from them, as well as we're giving. And there's this back and forth. And usually it's in that dynamic where there's some sense of feeling less lonely, feeling more connected to others. So before we dive in, I'd like to have each of you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Amanda, and I'm from Houston, Texas.
Hi, I'm Lila. I'm from West Bloomfield, Michigan, which is about 35 miles outside of Detroit.
I'm Corinne in Philadelphia.
And I'm Heather from Boston, Massachusetts. Whoop, whoop.
Yes, very cool. So we've got some spread geographically a little bit. So that's really cool. Let's dive right in and talk about this challenge that we have with love. And I think it's not like there's one type that struggles with accessing, experiencing love. It is all 9 types. And so the question I want to begin with is, in what ways are you seeking love?
I'll start, I would say, by trying to support the important people in my life, whether that's at work or at home, trying to, meet the needs of people. I'm a sexual 3, so supporting other people is really important to me. Also, trying to have deeper relationships now. I would say that's an area I'm really trying to focus on. I have not done that well throughout my adult life because I've been too focused on work. So that's been a challenge for me. I would say those are the 2 ways that I'm trying to receive love, and also just trying to anticipate how people might be perceiving me and experiencing me, and trying to be more thoughtful about how I show up.
Help me make the connection between you supporting others as a means to seeking love. What's the connection between that and?
Yeah, I think it's a little skewed, if I'm being honest. I think that it's tied to my desire to want people to admire me, and I may be mistaken that for love, to be honest, and therefore trying to meet their needs and support them with the hope that they will think highly of me, which may be perceived as love. And again, there's some work to do there for me.
Oh, wow. That's amazingly said.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Starting
That's
off with a bang right there.
Yeah.
Just killing it right out the gate. Oh my gosh.
I completely relate to that. And when I thought about this question, I thought about how I've really conflated love with admiration or admiration with love. And I think my whole life have been seeking admiration. I've been getting the awards, boasting about the things, striving. And I really thought the end goal, I would land at love. And I just landed at this, actually the separation instead of connection. I landed at admiration. And you don't always love the things that you admire. You want to put them on a shelf and maybe look at them, but you don't love them. You don't want to sit next to them on the couch at the end of the day. And so I think that I even know I've had these times where at the end of the day, I'm talking to my husband in a laundry list of the things I've done for the family as almost like a plea, like, please love me, see what I've done, see what I've accomplished. And somehow that would earn his love. And I do it without even thinking. It's just like, there's a silence and that's what comes up. Oh, here, let me start listing the things I did today. It's like I'm not even choosing for the inertia to go in that direction, but that's just where it lands.
Yeah. All the bids we make for love that are very much unconscious. It's so I appreciate you naming that.
Yeah, I love that, Amanda. And, I think social media really played into that in just such a negative way for me. I mean, it's literally called likes, right? Like me, love me. And you see, you see this and you realize, oh God, I feel worse somehow. I feel empty, right? And so for me, it's been getting away from needing that like affirmation from everyone and realizing, focus on the connections that really matter, doing things for others, because it's also very one-sided, right? Like if everyone just admire me, say yes to me, I'm not asking how you're doing. I'm just telling you all the great things that I'm doing. That's not love. That's a one-way street. And so for me, it's really been trying to get away from that. I'm always practicing like, well, tell me about you or how are you doing, because that's love. It's not, one way to me, that's not love. It takes two people, right? For that love. So I'm seeking a love that I like Lila's word support, right? So for me, it's like, if I'm going to learn how to do an achievement, make sourdough, I can't help it, right? I'm an achiever. If I'm going to make sourdough bread, I'm going to do cut flowers. I give them to friends. I give them to my loved ones, So I try to share those things and show my love. I used to want all the words, like tell me words about love. I think my love language used to be more the words, and now it's more like the acts of service. And I married someone who I think his love language is acts of service. So I think some of that rubbed off on me too. That happens sometimes when you are in a relationship with someone who has that you kind of learn, oh, that is another completely acceptable love language. It doesn't all have to just be words because they can be empty too sometimes.
Yeah. I appreciate the somewhat outside of the direction we're going in kind of comment you made that I think really is so important. That you said, it's always sometimes coming in the direction of admire me, look to me, and then turning that towards other people and like paying attention to them and really caring for them. The interesting thing about connection is it can never be a one-way street. It doesn't work if the only thing is like, I need to feel connected, so I'm trying to draw attention to myself. It actually starves you of that. It's like a temporary, it's like candy, but it doesn't really nourish you. But on the other hand, when you do that and you turn your attention outward, it's a strange experience of interesting. I feel more quiet internally. I feel more settled. I don't feel that angstiness, that need for being seen as much. So I appreciate you naming that.
I do think sometimes it's hard, though, because if you are shape-shifting, it's hard to connect with people, right? Because you're focused on how you are adapting to people and what you read in the room, the energy, in a way that is noise. When it comes to connection, it gets in the way of connection.
I would add in here to what everybody has identified, as I was sitting with this and reflecting a little bit, the words that I had jotted down. So it certainly has traditionally been a very external, right? Validation. So achieving the words. Yeah, I've sought it externally as opposed to sort of that innate, right? Just like that there's a wholeness and a love within. I have been chasing. So that's my other, it's just like just chasing that sense. And it's always the next. And then I've also been sitting and sort of thinking as a social three. And I don't know if others can relate to this. If I'm hosting at my house, I'm a lunatic right? Lunatic of like, does everybody have a seat and this and the energy and the who's connected and the who's the like, and it could be 15 people who really are loosely connected. I'm the connector. And I have this like spidey sense of like who's in and who's out and how to like, and then everybody leaves and I'm like exhausted. Really having connected with no one, right? So it's that performative, and yet like in that showing, like that feels like I'm showing love because I want people in the room and I want them to be connected and I want them all, part of this big social snowball that I have around me. So that's something that shows up. And then the other on the growing edge, I would say, and I'm not good at this, but the pause of what do I need and what do I want? As opposed to starting in the, oh, I love this person, therefore I'm going to do something, right? More transactional as opposed to, be human with this person alongside this person. So yeah, there are a couple of my ideas kicking around. That's how my threeness shows up. And I see heads nodding.
The party one, Corinne, yes. And I actually said just to my child yesterday, I was like, did anyone notice that this person, as soon as we walked into the party, wasn't in a good mood? And so, of course, I thought it was my job to fix them. And my 12-year-old son's like, I didn't notice. And I was like, I want to be that person for a day, right? But here's the problem, right? Is like you can notice, but then you and I, it sounds like, think it's our job to
totally
fix it, right? You can notice it, but I'm working towards like, maybe it's okay if they just need to be a little grumpy today, or maybe it's okay if the 15 people at the party don't have the best time that I think they're having, but maybe they're going to have a great time if I don't get involved as much, right?
I have a friend who calls that, like managing other people's experience. It's not my job to manage their experience. But I very much related, Corinne, like you were saying, I am a different subtype. I'm a self-pres, but I relate a little bit more to everyone knows when we're having a big group over because mom goes crazy, like you said, but goes crazy and like making sure the house is perfect and everything looks beautiful and the food is perfect. And when they walk through the door, this is what they see. But then once everyone walks through the door, I'm like, relax. Like I did my part. They saw the beauty. And then I'm like, all right. And then I can connect and I can hang out. And I'm not so much during the party like you.
That's interesting.
Managing that. I needed to manage, like, it was almost like their first impression or like what they thought of me based off when they walked in. And then the relaxing starts. It all happens before they arrive.
And then because I am socially repressed, I'm just in the corner. I'm not trying to do any of that. So,
well, are you looking for someone over in the corner to connect to, or like what are you doing over there?
That would be my preference. Is if I could find one person to connect with like this, laser focused. I am so good. I'm in my glory because I can go deep. I can connect. I can just get to know them as a person, and I don't have to try to figure out how to, make conversation with a bunch of different people. That just stresses me out.
Gotcha.
This is great because that's the variety we aimed for, was getting 3 different instinctual stackings in order to really get a better sense of how does that show up in the real world. Because there are the 3s out there that are like, poof, a party at my house? Heck no. Like that's tremendously stressful. And others who totally relate to that. So it's great to have the variety of expression. All right, let's go to the next question. In what ways do you resist love?
The inner critic for me, and in this space, like it for me as a 3, the shame thing is where it just all starts and just stops. The resistance is it's the gig, it's the critic, and it shows up differently, right? But if I can get quiet, then I can usually be like, oh, this is your shtick going on right now. You're the one who perceives this other person to be really needy. You're the one perceiving this person to be inefficient. You're the one perceiving. I would say for me, if you want to see me, right, like implode or dissolve, pick your word, someone whom I love and trust, if they were to say, you know what, I was really disappointed in you when you didn't do X, Y, and Z. I mean, flattened by that. The thought of disappointing, right? And like that is all shame in there for me, that I didn't show up right. I didn't meet their expectation, right? It goes back to that external, right? I've disappointed this person. As opposed to like, the day was really hard and then the traffic was this, like, like there could have been a million reasons, but where I immediately start is I did something wrong, therefore disappointed the person I love. So it's just it's a shame spiral for me in that space of sort of that resistance, or where that
you're not deserving of love at that point. It's
so it's this like, oh, therefore I've disappointed them, and I can run the whole gamut of like, that person will never love me again.
I can 100% relate to that. I feel like if I fail at anything big or small, I decide myself that I am unworthy of love and I will push someone away. Like I've even physically, I messed up something and my daughter came up to hug me and I pushed her like away from my body because I could not receive a hug in that moment. I could not receive it because I love how you said the shame. I was so deep in the mud of the shame that it's like it's scary to receive love. It's like physically, bodily impossible.
That's really helpful for me, because I just had that happen to me in the last 2 weeks with my daughter through a conversation that I learned, came to the realization I didn't do it very well. And it was just tore me apart. The closest I could get was that I failed at something. I immediately connected that I did not do that well. I failed, but I didn't pick up on the shame part until now. But that's really what it was. Well, I felt shame that I had said something that really I should not have said it, and or I should have said it differently. In that situation, I felt like I'm going to just take a break from chatting every day or whatever. Let's just take a break. And it really wasn't about that. It was because I was feeling, like you just said, shame. That's really, really what it was. I think for me personally, that's how it happens. But when it's at work and I get, feedback like that or whatever, it's about competence more so, thinking that the person may not see me as competent and therefore I'm not worthy of that. That connection seems broken to me.
Interesting. For me, I think the way I resist love is sort of back to the first way of, how I'm looking for it is I think I can do everything. I think I take on too much. I have to be in control. And so when people, maybe want to show love by doing something, or I have to make myself vulnerable, I push that away. It's like, no, I don't need any help. I can do it all. I was the oldest of, there's 4 siblings. I was the only girl. So it's just like, I got this. We don't have time for love. Like, I got to get stuff done. I got to keep achieving, right? To bring it back to the type. And so that's taken practice. It's taken practice to Corinne's point, like to get into that silence and be like, they're just trying to help you because they're trying to show that they love you, and you need to say, okay, maybe that's not the way I would do it. And I think I've been surprised. And also having kids has forced some of that too. Like it takes a village for real. So asking for help, needing that help has made me have to be more open to it. And I used to, I think, be more like you're describing with the shame. And I think learning about the whole idea of growth mindset that these kids are learning now, which is amazing. It's this gift that we're giving this next generation, which is like, you're supposed to make mistakes. That's how you learn. Mistakes are amazing, right? You never say, I'm not good at math. You say, I just need to try hard. I'm like, oh God, we could have all used this 40 years ago, right? That is not what we were taught. And so I've really tried to reframe my thinking with that growth mindset. I'm trying to practice what I preach to my kids. So before I might have said some of these things like, oh gosh, I'm unworthy. What's wrong with me? I messed up, I feel shame. And instead it's like, well, that's what we do, guys. We make mistakes, and just trying to like say it out loud to convince myself and my kids that I'm modeling for. But I do think it's a pretty brilliant concept, that growth mindset, instead of having that fixed mindset, right? It's okay to make mistakes. That means we're human. And it doesn't mean there's something intrinsically wrong with me, but it takes practice and years, I think, to undo what we were taught as in our generation, that's not what we were taught, I don't think. Especially, I think, for females. I don't know. We're all working through it, I guess.
I feel like I'm making a connection that I haven't made before, and I'm curious your thoughts. It's this connection performance continuum. And it's like the desire for connection and the conflict with the needing to perform, to have connection, wanting connection, but needing to perform to get it. And it's almost like this tension between these two sides. I want connection to be cared about for who I am, but I don't feel like I really deserve it without this performance side. So it just sounds like I'm hearing this like inner battle between these two needs.
Oh, yeah. Certainly true for me, unfortunately, realizing that the story I was telling myself for a long time and still, battle with that is to receive love only can come through achievement or through doing work, doing, and then doing something that's valuable or being seen as valuable because of what I do. And it gets in the way. It gets in the way, like, prioritizing tasks over people. That's another way, I think, in which I resist love and connection, is because I'm focused on getting the task done. And the social part of life comes second. That's, happens person by person. Interactions and opportunities to interact get in the way. They are second because I'm trying to get something done and get it done efficiently as well. So not just get it done tomorrow, but let's get it done as quickly as I can. And that means everything else that could be an opportunity to connect with someone becomes secondary.
Yeah, I can relate to that when you were saying. It made me think of some mantras that I try to say, but like to be a human being and not a human doing, and to like be here now. I see that a lot with, I have a 5-year-old. It's my 4th child, but he still wants to sit on the ground and play games. And I want to sit there with him. And then my mind in default mode goes to, oh yeah, I need to go stretch the sourdough, or I need to go, prepare this or pull this or do this. And I have to, because that's where my just auto focus goes. I have to keep pulling myself back to the be here now with who's in front of me. That's where the work lies, is that getting myself back, looking in the eyes of my children, of my husband, looking in their eyes and not looking forward to what can be done, what should be done, what can be improved.
Jim, I'm thinking about that, right, of connection and performance, right? So from my leadership experience, when I get caught myself, right, in 3 zone of only I can crack this nut, right, figure this thing out. And that's often the growing side and the more connected and actually the more creative, and where the solution usually emerges, is when I have the courage to say, I have no idea, right? I'm scared too, right? Again, it's that performative side. It's that shape-shifting side. It's the what I'm supposed to, right? As the CEO, I'm supposed to. The perception of and me playing that role. And it is that time and time again reminder, like right now, I'm like, everybody in my family knows I hate budget season. I hate it. I hate it with every fiber in my being because I don't know how to make the thing balance, right? And so I will go through this cycle where I'm like, oh, I gotta, and then like at some point I will cry with my leadership team and be like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And they're like, well, this isn't your job to do it yourself. And I'm like, oh, right. Right. We're a team, and who has what skills and what. I realize it sooner than I have in the past, but it's when I allow myself that grace, that courage to say, I don't know the answer, right? Like I can't fix X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. And I'm going to sit here with you. Or flip side, I'm really scared. I don't know how we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Would you just listen as I vent? And that feels like the antithesis, certainly like Heather in that sort of playing in that gender role space, but certainly as a woman in a leadership role, like any crack in the veneer of not having it all together, that also, I soldier up all the more because I've got to have it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, you're onto something with this dichotomy here. We have to almost train ourselves to say like, okay, I don't have to go on to the next thing, to the next list task, right? Like, let me try to connect, be in that moment. Jim, you talked to me once in one of our sessions, just saying like, this is it, just sitting there with another person, right? And realizing like, oh, this is life right now, right? And it doesn't have to be like, wait a minute, though, I could go and get the next sale or do this or get that next thing, whatever it is. Let's just be right here, right now, and be present in this. And I think that's hard for threes. And it's because it never ends. You just want the next thing, and so you have to learn that that's like this false, golden ring. Then the golden ring doesn't exist, right? Because you're always going to want, well, but then I could get this next thing and this next thing. And you get that and you're like, oh, it doesn't feel as amazing as I thought. Let me go get another. Corinne, I think you started with this, like that's the self-love, right? That's like being okay with who I am too, and just being able to sit with myself as who I am and maybe not getting that achievement. And I think that's probably a lot of lifetime of work, right? For everyone, really.
Yeah, I read this quote that said, the more you like yourself, the less you'll need others to. And so it's like this idea that we feel like we need others to like us. But if we just did the work of loving ourselves, then that might slow down that inertia. That might slow down that like need. Almost sometimes I described it to a friend as sometimes this affirmation, especially from an outside source and especially very specific affirmation, is almost like a drug for me. Like I get a little bit and then I need more. Like I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied with it. Yeah, I guess the goal is to do the work of truly loving and being happy with ourselves, and then the need just dissolves to search for it outside.
It's interesting because I often hear threes though fault themselves for that need of the external, but needs are neutral. There's nothing wrong with needing it. There's nothing inherently wrong with needing it from another source. It's not the exclusion of the external voice for your internal one. It's the inclusion of your internal voice with the external one.
I think in there for me, getting really clear on need and want, right? And is this something I need? Or is this sort of that I'm chasing? I need others. That's the external needing of validation is different than like, what I need to do today is not start at 7 a.m. I'm going to take the half hour. I need to exercise today for 30 minutes. That's different than I need the XYZ vendor, some external, right? I need my boss or my board chair or my husband or to tell me how great I am. That's a different, as opposed to I need to sit and meditate for 10 minutes today and slow down.
Yeah. Well, I think you're naming it. And the need that you're all describing is the mechanism or the means by which you're trying to achieve that sense of love, that sense of connection.
Yeah.
It's like if I do all of these things, then if I earn my way, if I work hard enough, if I'm successful enough, then I will get it. And so because it's the means to getting there, then, your awareness is like, oh, it's not working anymore. It's not working like I wanted it to work. And it brings to mind that there's an insistence that all 9 types have on how we're going to be loved. And it's the pathway by which we choose to be, to have that love experience with other people. And that's what makes it particularly challenging when you have both the desire, the need for connection. You become aware of it. And then you have this, oh, but this is how I'm to do that. I'm to do this by earning it. But then the pathway there, and Corinne, you had started to talk about this, and I use the word vulnerable, like when you admit to not being able to do something, there's a vulnerability that opens up. That vulnerability is the opening to that receptivity of love and that receptivity to connection. But it's terrifying for all 9 types. So what you've named is actually true for all 9 types. We're all terrified. We all are trying to earn. There's a need to earn it. It's this. My insistence is I'm going to be loved by this way. Now it's not conscious. That happens very early on in life. But when you become aware of it, you realize the insistence. I will earn it. So what you had said, Lila, about like working hard to earn all of this stuff. You're working at it, and you can sometimes not even see the people in the process of trying to achieve, when the very thing is you're trying to get to that place of love. They're the means by which you can actually experience love, but it's the insistence that I will get there this way. and when we're aware of that insistence, it's like, boy, I have two paths to choose. One is the way that I've been going about doing this, and the other one is a different way. And that different way is terrifying because it does require vulnerability. And so that's where I'd like us to go with this question is, in what ways are you learning to receive love? Which is different than the insistence on our mechanism of how we go about doing it.
You even use the word absorb love, like not even just receive, but like for you, can it sink in? Because we were talking about wanting it to come towards you, but actually like sinking into you.
For me, it's certainly about slowing down, because I'm always moving quickly. I'm talking quickly. I'm walking very fast. And I'm learning to lean into my self-pres, which is my second on my stack, to take a deep breath and just slow down every way that my body can move or speak. And I think the other way, which is connected to what Joel was saying a few minutes ago too, is with trying to do and do the task and put that first and social comes second. To me, it's about, I'm learning to understand it's about the why. So let's peel back the onion and figure out the why. What is it that I believe I need to be or do? Be more so than do, because I know what I'm doing, but need to be that's attached to this need to task before social. And so I've done a lot of work in trying to say, what's my true self and what's my false self? Is my false self attached to this personality or my ego of, okay, I'm this position in an organization and leaders don't do X. I'm the leader. Therefore, I need to be doing this. And that's work, and not seeing the value of redefining what that can look like to build relationships that are meaningful and deep. It's very layered to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear that.
Shapeshifter before, Lila. So I'm kind of tied for sexual and social 3. I can do both really well. And when you are a shapeshifter and you have the ability to, basically turn into whoever you're talking to, I can speak just like them. I can make them think I'm just like them. I can do their cadence, all of it. It's like, well, who am I? Am I actually connected to you, or am I just putting on a performance, because I can, and because I've used it my whole life. So one of the questions was like, I use a charm to connect to other people or get them to do what I want. I'm like, oh, totally. Right. Because I had to be scrappy, as a kid, and I was good at it, and so that also makes sometimes you feel like inauthentic, right? Like, well, who am I really? And that's taken, I think, time. And also just knowing a lot of different people and different types of people and realizing sometimes you might grow out of a relationship, and that's okay too, because people change. And so that's, as I get older too, realizing like, that's okay. Maybe we had a connection back then. It's okay if we don't now, and maybe we will again. But sometimes it's hard to have to realize that, because it almost feels like a failure, but we don't like to fail.
So for me, and this is where I know, like, I'm like, oh, here's the thing. And I don't know if my fellow panelists, but like I can feel a racing heartbeat, right? And the sweat is starting. But what's showing up for me in this as I think about, and there I go saying think and not feel, but as a 3, right? I felt it and now I'm thinking. So my dad has Alzheimer's. And the first couple years, right, I 3'd it every which way, right? Let's get new doctors. Let's do this. Let's check meds. Let's do right? I have to do of course, I think I could do something to stop this disease. And the growing edge of me with love, like, there's nothing I can do. Just be with him, But like, there's such, like, God has a real sense of humor. I think, y'all, there's something here in that, right? Of like, to just be. He is not worried about what's coming. He has no concerns about what's happened, right? Like, for him and his mind right now, it is literally, right? Like all of us talking about mantras, like where my dad is in this disease, it is just right here, right now. That's what he has. So Yeah, there is some grace I'm finding in that. Again, like my heart feels like it's going to like jump out of my body sharing this because it does feel so wildly, vulnerable. But the grace of just being with him. And then I think like, okay, where are the other places? Lila, like we all responded to that of like, where do I slow down and I just allow myself to be with XYZ? And where do I ask someone to say, you know what, can you just be with me without any expectation attached to? Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate deeply the vulnerability.
I
so appreciate the vulnerability of you saying all of that. And just for clarification for those who are not type 3s, the vulnerability is not so much in the facts of the story. It's in that there's a helplessness to that. There's an inability to fix this problem, to solve it. You can't do anything. So
I can do, and I tried, right?
Yeah.
Like I threed it for a long time on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that felt like disconnection. That felt like frustration. That felt, there wasn't a to-do list I could do to solve it.
Yeah.
So then my option is to be with. Yeah.
Beautiful. This is a beautiful moment. I just love this space that we're in right now. This feels very connecting. First to our own hearts. I think that's beautiful about connection. It starts there. It says this place of deep connection to our own heart. And there's no separation in that. It's non-binary in that space of, there's no duality there. It's like, I'm connected to my own heart. I'm connected to yours. You're connected to mine. You're connected to your own. And that's the beautiful space that exists there. So I deeply appreciate that truthfulness and the,
thanks.
It's a sweet space for all of us to enter in with you. And there's something precious about being able to be present, be with no effort, with no try, as difficult as that is. So follow-up question to you, Corinne, and also to the rest of you in your own particular stories of having experiences around receiving love. When you are able to, of course, this is like a work in progress for all of us. When you're able to be present and able to be really there, what happens to the internal space, the internal angst or loneliness, or what happens to all of that, this sense of connection or disconnection?
It just gets quiet, right? It just, there's a calming, I feel, right? There's a physical calming. There is even just you, Joel, of like holding that space, right? My heart is no longer racing, right? I'm like leaned in, like I could just like, I feel there's a closer connection, that grace just to be with my dad, or in those moments when I've said at work of, I'm really scared and I don't know what to do. When that wall comes down and the colleague says to me, like, of course I have no expectation, right? And just comes across the, room to give me a hug of like, I'm sorry you've been carrying this that long, right? It's just like the most beautiful, connected, like, kind of like when Lila said, like when we can just like, yeah. There's more space that's how the others, like, there's just more space in my physical body. There's more space in my body. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think for me, Corinne, I appreciate you sharing that too. I know that how hard it is. My dad has dementia. My mom died of that 2 years ago. I'm sorry. My heart goes out for you, goes out to you rather. I hear what you said about, just feel like you're at least for me, it's being at peace. And I think it's helping me to realize that not everything has to be done by me. It's taking a lot for me to figure out what's mine to do and what's God's to do. And I have to ask myself that question a lot because I'm also inclined to want to do something. But when I'm in that space of connection, I do feel at peace. I do feel like things will be okay. Things will be okay. They will be what they will be. And I'll be okay too, and we'll be okay. I just feel like I'm more comfortable with being able to be present in my own body and be able to receive and connect with that person to see them for who they are and meet them where they are.
Yeah, you've said a lot, Lila, in the past. I think was really insightful. I think it was during the certification course that you were part of. Is like, becoming more present to your body, which I thought was really interesting and very, very important for threes. Is that's where presence really resides. It's in the body. The head's too future oriented. The heart's too past oriented. The body's like right here in this space right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And I have to remind myself of that. I get up every morning, I walk, just get some steps in, and I have to say to myself, just stay where you are. Stay right here. Don't go anywhere. Don't be thinking about the next day, the next hour, because I'm just so future focused when it comes to my MO, so to speak, more often than not, that I do have to talk to myself. And it helps to tell myself, okay, be present now. Just stay where you are. It's okay. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And I do think there's freedom in that.
In answer to that, the last question, in what ways are you learning to receive love? I think my kids are my greatest teachers of love in my daily life. They forgive really easily. And so the question before this, when I said, when I fail at things, I feel like I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve love. Well, they show me very quickly that they're over it and we can just go play again. And they also don't care if I've done my hair or my makeup or if I've showered or if I did the laundry or if I cooked. They don't care about all the achievement things. They just want mom. They just want time and presence. And that is just such counterintuitive to me and a daily teaching to me of where love resides in that connection. And how you were saying, what does it feel like when we're experiencing it? I was just outside with my daughter hitting a volleyball, and it's like the wind was blowing and we're laughing and the sun setting. And it's like, there's nowhere on earth I'd rather be. It's just like this right here, just this. This is it.
I kind of have come to the realization that the connections only happen when I slow down. And I think we're all sort of saying the same thing. And it's our nature not to. And I think a lot of the people around us probably like our energy and that we are always, going to throw that, if we do throw parties, not all of us do, but, but that they're really not connecting with us while we're in that sort of frenzied, that high energy state. It might be fun to kind of watch me go and put on the Heather show. But the truth is, like, if I can sit down and do a puzzle with you, that's when I'm going to just, sit there and connect and talk. Or if I can just look at you or, do an activity that slows me down. So taking a walk the dog with someone, that's where the connection really happens. Even sometimes just, driving in the car and that person's just next to me and we're just chatting and it forces me to slow down. Right. And I can't, do the thing that we were all doing, Lila, when you're describing that when we're up here at this high energy level, it's hard to connect to someone up there. And so I think that was a great question, Joel. And it's making me, sort of real. And to Jim's point too, right? Performance connection. Like when you're here in that high energy performance mode, it's hard. Who's going to connect with that really, right? Yeah. They can watch it and maybe applaud it, which we want, right? But they're not going to connect it. And Corinne, my heart goes out to you. I lost my dad 15 years ago and I'm still dealing with it. So it's not easy. It's not easy. And I'm sending you
thank you.
Good wishes. And he is giving you that gift of the presence, even though I'm sure it's so hard.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're slowing down, all four of you talking about slowing down and becoming more present to the moments. And that it is difficult because not only, I think what you mentioned, Heather, is a really good point that our circles tend to be built. We're all architects of our own lives, regardless of what we want to claim is that, no, it's this circumstance, it's that circumstance. Yes, there are plenty of circumstances that do hit us that we weren't expecting or weren't planning, but we are very much the architects of a lot of our own lives and the results of our lives. And so people that tend to surround threes tend to be people that oftentimes depend on threes. And so the threes can get caught with that. And then it's like, well, they love me and they praise me, but then it also means I have to keep on this gerbil wheel. I can't get off. And the moment that I get off, they won't think of me anymore, the way they think of me currently. And so that's a tricky thing to navigate because, as a few of you have said, your inner work has meant that you have to value your own voice, your own self-care. And so that's part of the tricky part to moving towards more of a vulnerable space, is having a supportive group or people around you that can handle that, and that can handle that well. So as you open up as a 3, that you have people around you who won't go, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" But instead say, "Oh, well, of course, you're one of us. This is normal. This is human." And express grace and acceptance to you as you are, unvarnished, unshowered. You said, Amanda, I love that. I love that. Yeah. It's that, like, I'm here as I am in this moment, and I'm being loved as I am in this moment. And then the ability to actually take that in, even if we don't feel like we deserve it. So I just think this has been such a beautiful time together. And my own heart feels so moved. And I love it when that happens, because that's connection. I feel more deeply connected to you and to myself as a result of this conversation. So to each of you, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope this work of art helps you grow. Reach out to us at www.theartofgrowth.org to find out about the upcoming group coaching session, to take our free Enneagram or Instincts test, learn about individual and couples coaching, as well as our next round of certification. If you would like to see how our work can improve your corporate culture and team dynamics, email us to set up a free consultation. You can follow us on Instagram at just Art of Growth, and make sure you follow the podcast. And leaving us a review on iTunes really helps people find this work. Until next time, my friends, grace and growth.